The
Mm-hmm.
next thing I know, it's like his eyes just went white.
Mm.
They went white, red. Like I've never seen him this angry before because this was his first time going to jail
Mm-hmm.
concerning us. Um, at that point, when I looked up, my eye was like pounding. He had at this point, that's when he started balling his fist up. He balled his fist up and he hit me directly in my eye. My eye was swollen, shut, black. I had to take days off work after this.
Mm.
Um, I was crying. I was on the floor,
Mm.
and it's like he popped out of it. I
Mm.
was almost like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type of character.
Mm. All right, all right. Well, hey everybody, and welcome back to our channel, Love, Lust, or Lies. And we are just so thankful for all of you who've tuned in week after week, segment after segment, episode after episode, just pouring out so much love and support, to the survivors that are just coming forward in such boldness, telling their story. I'm your host, Dr. Dana Hunter, and our co host, Dr. Delicia. And we're so happy to be with y'all to just bring y'all just another great episode. So, y'all already know, I told you when we were first starting that this was like a calling, and I thought it was so important to really bring information to you all that would really change how you think, how we perceive people, how we're thinking about dating, if you're dating, how we move. Because one of the things we know is a lot of people looking for their partner, a lot of people looking to be married, and people are getting married and finding themselves in harmful, toxic relationships. And so I hope that the information that we have shared with y'all so far has been enlightening, has been eye opening. I will tell you that I have been in this work and in this space for 20 plus years. And the information and some of the stories that I've heard and that I've been hearing is just eye opening. I mean, from Veronica talking about the 50-year-old babysitter who was 50-year-old female babysitter, and just some of the things that we're hearing is just, it makes us say, God, I gotta be careful. And we're hearing people, some of your comments. We want to thank y'all for commenting and sharing your heart and your thoughts, saying, man, this is crazy, this is insane. Some people don't even say, this is unbelievable, but it's believable and it's happening. Sean, anything, Dr. Delisi,
No,
anything
it's
you
a
want to say?
thing. No, you're spot on. This is a thing, and I think this is something that we didn't realize when we started this program, but it's definitely coming out. And again, as we'll hear with our individual, our person today, our guest today, it's just it's a thing, and we just really need to be careful. And I think that's part of why we're here, is to get the
Yes.
information out and let everybody know. Keep your
Yes.
radars up.
Keep your radars
Do not
up.
ignore the red flags.
Yes, yes, yes. And it comes in so many different forms. Now we're starting to really hear more about the women who are predators. And I'm just like, that piece that just is blowing me away. And so again, our hope is just to present, stories, and that our guests share stories that will help you think twice before settling down. Or if you see those flags, I hope you hear one of these stories that'll make you make a decision that will save your life. And speaking of, I'm just so thankful for our guest today. She's a survivor. She's a powerhouse. She reached out to us and was ready to share her story. And let me say this: it many of you out there have stories and are not ready to share your story. We understand that. We understand the courage that it takes to go public with your story, and everybody's not ready for that. But what we're seeing is that the people who are coming forth telling their stories are at different points of their healing journey. And some, even through sharing their story, are receiving more healing, a greater measure of healing. One of our guests who shared their story said chains, they felt chains breaking off as they shared, so this is powerful. And we're just so thankful again for all of our prior guests who have shared. And again, we're thankful for our guests today. So I'm not going to tarry because she is just about to blow all of our minds with this one. And so without further ado, I want to just welcome Keetra. I might go back and forth. Her name is Keetra, but I'll call her Key. She's like a family friend to us now. So, Key, thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about who you are. Introduce yourself to our audience.
Hello. I want to thank you guys for allowing me to come on your platform to share my story. My name is Keetra Key Leonard. I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas. I will be sharing my story with my domestic violence marriage from 2011 to 2018 when I decided and had the strength, the courage to be able to walk out. So I'm here on y'all platform. And again, thank you guys for having me. This is so much needed here in our community.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your boldness and willingness just to come forward. We already know it's going to help somebody. It's several people. So, thank you so much. So, Key, we're just going to jump right into it. You said that you were in a marriage. You found yourself in a marriage, and I'm going to even title this series "Relationships from Hell."
Sounds about
Period.
right.
Yes. I was meditating. I just had relationships from here. I said, Lord, this, and as I was reading over, some of the notes and some of the things that you shared, I said, God, there's no way to explain this other than a relationship straight from hell. It sounded like you looked up and realized you had married the devil. Can
Powerful.
you can you tell us, about how you met this guy and how this thing happened?
I met him. I roller skate, so I met him at the rink. I knew him like a year prior to us really just connecting, and talking. I would see him, he'll speak, he'll come up to me, say little things, and that was for a year. I never seen that part of him. In 2019, we decided to go on our first date. Um, it was beautiful. Like no other date that I've ever had been on at that time. Uh, a gentleman, um, well spoken, caring, anything you can think of that most women look for in a man. Just out the gate, it was unbelievable. Like he definitely blew my mind with that one. So
So
I never would have
out the
thought.
gate, out the gate, you said he was kind. He had all these features. You found him
Mhm.
attractive. Did you mention that?
Yes, I
Found him
did.
attractive. He
Hmm.
was working
Definitely working. Yes, ma'am.
and saying all the right
Okay.
things.
That's
All the
exactly
right
what I was gonna say.
things.
Key, it sounded like he was saying all the right things.
All the
Everything
right things.
you
Hmm.
just saw glitter. Everything he
Yes.
said, it was glitter all over it.
Yes.
Okay, so
Exactly.
who approached who? How did y'all connect?
He approached me. He had been like flirting for like over a year,
Mm,
and I didn't give him the time. He was younger than me, so I was like, you know what, I don't have time. But he just kept, and I was like, okay, let me see what he's talking about. And then when
okay.
like I said, we went on our first date, and after that, it just sparked, and that's when hell began. I guess I stepped my foot in there, as you could say.
Yes, step your foot in a ant pile.
I
So
did.
you said he was persistent, and I think that's something that our audience, that's something that we've been saying and preaching from the beginning
Huh?
is that, these people who are problematic, male or female, they might be persistent in their outreach to us, or in their attraction and trying to hook up with us. And we perceive that persistence.
Persistence of the pursuit. This is, it has to be meant, because he
It
just
got to
won't
be
stop
meant. It got
chasing
to
me.
be meant,
Yes, yes,
But what we don't realize is the devil will be persistent in chasing us too, right?
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. They
Yes.
actually love bomb you. Um,
Oh,
if you
come
know
on
that
now.
term, they actually
Yes.
love bomb you. And it takes you fast, and you in a whirlwind.
Ooh.
You
Okay,
know,
now
you
you
really.
didn't just you didn't just
Yes.
spoke Greek to somebody. Somebody
Yep.
like myself might not know what love bombing is. I've heard of it, but break that down. Break that down with what love bombing looked like with him.
um, love bombing with him was he checked all the boxes. And it was fast. You know,
Okay.
everything that he
Mm,
said, did, everything came really fast.
mm,
It gets to a point where you really can't even think. You know, you got to make a decision. That part, they're pouring their love into you. They're telling
Wow.
you everything that you want to
ooh,
hear.
wow.
They know it. They know what to say and what to do to get you.
So you mean to tell
And
me people can almost like they can study us in a sense, even though it's a quick relationship connection, they can speak directly to what they know we want to hear.
Yes, ma'am. These
Mm,
men and women, because a lot of people just think that it is men that's domestic. It's also
yes.
women that are domestic. So we're not the first one. Okay, we're
Okay.
gonna start there. They had to start somewhere.
Mhm.
So we're not the first one. They've been doing this. They've been
Mm,
looking at us. They've been studying us.
mm,
We just never noticed that they're studying us.
mm, mm.
They know people that we know, so of course they'll start a conversation with them, say, "Hey, you know, tell me a little bit about Keitra." So they're already up one on you, and you don't even know
Ooh.
that they're up one on
Mhm.
you.
Wow. Wow. That's deep. That's deep. Thank you. So this fella took some time to love bomb you, to get you hooked, to get you on the hook.
Yes, ma'am.
So he got you on the hook, and tell us what happened. So y'all dated for how long?
We dated for 2 years. We got engaged in 2012, and we got married in 2013.
So y'all got married in 2013. During this 2-year time period of dating and even engagement, did you see any flags?
I did see flags,
Oh,
but you
okay.
know, especially women. You know, I can't really speak too much on men, but we're nurturers and we go in thinking that we can change a person.
Um,
Especially when we know their background, where they didn't come from love,
oh,
a family of love, or a woman to love them and treat them right. And you see that you've been around their family, so you go into, I can help this person,
oh
especially when you
my.
got that type of heart and mind, that you
Mm,
can help this person change, and you can't. That's your first red flag right there. You
mm,
cannot change a person, a man
mm,
or a woman. You can't change them. So you go in with that. Um, it started with how I dressed.
mm.
Why are you wearing that? When you knew how I dressed when you started talking to me.
Uh-oh.
So it started there. You know, you want to, when we go out, we went skating every Sunday faithfully. Let me see what you're wearing. Why you need to see
Mm,
what I what I'm wearing? You know, it started with little things like that,
wow.
or who you on the phone with.
Mm.
Why are you on the phone with them? Why are
Even
you not
family?
spending time with me?
Was that
Family,
even
Mm.
family?
even family, my mom, my sister, anybody, friends. He didn't have many friends. He had a huge family, but as
Mm-hmm.
far as friends, he didn't have many friends. So me, I'm a social butterfly here in my town, in my city. A lot of people know me, and that was, he didn't like that.
Mm. And
So it
so
started
you
with there.
Yes. So it started within that 2-year period of dating, and then even in the after the engagement, you started to see some of the control, some of the jealousy, some of the flags. But it wasn't enough for you to walk away.
I think at that point, because within those 2 years, he did grab me. Um, he did
Mm,
slap me. In that 2 years. But of course, that they'll cry and they'll beg and they'll never do it again. And I'll go into counseling, and
Mm,
I've never had nobody as good as you. Treat me the way you. And at that point in my life, I can only speak about me. I was tired. I'm like, okay, let me work this out. Let me see
Mhm.
if I can help him.
Mhm.
And
mm,
at that point, you're in love.
yes.
And that's love is a beautiful thing, but it also can be a dangerous thing.
Mm,
So in my point, it was dangerous.
wow.
And you don't feel free not to answer if you don't feel comfortable, but
Hmm.
or had you guys been intimate already?
Yes, within those 2 years, yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Because
Would
yeah,
you say that sex made
mhm,
it harder?
that's what I was.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Sex it's supposed to bring a person together closer. um I'm different now. I've grown so much. Sex is a soul tie, and people don't
Mm,
understand that.
yes.
And the demons and everything that was within him, it
Ooh.
Mm,
came within me. I
Mm,
didn't know who I was as a woman. I didn't know
mm,
Keitra.
mm,
So I've done a lot of work on myself within myself, but as young women, I could tell them, even as men, giving yourself to somebody, you're soul tying with them. So
mm-hmm,
whatever that's in them is gonna be in you.
mm, mm. And with somebody that 9 times out of 10 is not your soulmate. You're
Yes,
soul
ma'am.
tying with somebody that's not your soulmate.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. So between the 2 year time span, you say this man initially was love bombing,
Hmm.
but then all of a sudden he started getting jealous, controlling. He even put his hands on you. He
Yes,
slapped
ma'am.
you, he
Yes,
grabbed
ma'am.
you.
Yes, ma'am.
And then out of nowhere he proposes. He proposes to you and then y'all get married.
Yes, ma'am.
When we think about today, and that's really one of the purposes of this show, most of our young women, and now because the men are so few and far between, the older
Mhm.
women even want to be married, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so now the pickings, it seemed like, are so slim that people who might have seen the slap, the grab,
Hmm.
the jealous, the control would say, well, make
It's not
excuses.
that bad.
It's
I
Yeah.
mean,
kind of like you mentioned before. Yeah, it's not that bad, or maybe it'll get better. Let me give it some time. Was those some of the things that you were thinking?
Yes, ma'am. And then you think, at first it's cute, especially you never had nobody
Mm,
to, feel that way about you. Oh, he care
mm.
about what I got on, or he care if another
Oh.
dude is looking at me, or,
Mm,
at first it's cute. And then it's just overbearing at this point.
yes.
You have no control of what you can put on, what you can say, how you
Wow.
can look. And it goes fast, and you
Wow.
just get caught up and you're in love at that point and
Yes.
just trying to hang in there.
and the isolation, I think that's
Yeah,
also something, how did
yes.
you feel with that? I mean, were you close to your family and then not being able to, or at least it being a problem with your significant other that you communicate with your family?
Me and my mom, it's me, my mom, and my sister. It's just two of us, my mom, and I'm the baby. So we talked on the phone daily, like to this day,
Mm, mhm,
He didn't like that.
Mm,
mhm,
I should have seen at first with the relationship that he had with his mom, and people think that that really don't show nothing, but I feel
mm,
like the relationship that people have with their parents, it really shows their character.
mhm,
He would go with his over to his mom, but it's almost like he had a hate for her, but a
mm,
love, if that makes sense. Um, so I should have known then. He didn't understand the fact that why I'm on the phone with my mom and my sister every day.
mhm,
You
because he
gonna chat
wasn't,
it
he
up
didn't
with your
get that.
girls, with your mom,
Yeah.
just talk about anything. And he didn't understand that. So as
He
soon
didn't
as I
have
would get
those
on,
relationships, so he couldn't even he couldn't
yeah,
wrap his mind around that.
no, no, he couldn't. And every time I got on the phone is, here, I need to talk to you. Tell me you'll call him back later. And then you
Mm,
look up, months and years go by, you're not talking to him but once a week or once a month.
mhm,
And it had got so bad, and I would get so fearful of him till
mhm,
I talk to them if I'm at work. and not at home when I'm around him.
Wow.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
2014 comes around and y'all tie the knot, and you would describe that as probably one of the worst decisions of your life.
You know, the day when it came for us to get married, I thought and I thought, and I'm like, am I making the right decision? But I also had it like, well, you done told everybody,
Yes.
uh, you might as well go through with it. It's gonna get better.
Yes.
Um, and and I went with that. And I
Yes.
to this day, with tons of counseling, we all make bad decisions.
Yes.
But I made a good decision in the end.
Yes.
So I beat myself up still to this day. This is very difficult. And anybody who's never been a domestic, it's hard for them to understand. And that's why a lot of us that's been through that, we don't communicate with people who hasn't been in that
Yeah.
because we feel like you'll never understand.
Yes. Yes. And I think, when we think about being in these unhealthy relationships,
Mhm.
most women, I would say, we should be understanding, because 99.9% of women have made a crazy bad decision,
Yes,
in
ma'am.
being in a relationship, or have missed the flags, or have stayed in a relationship longer than what we should have. All of us, I think, have been there. And so we should all be a little understanding towards our sister who, found herself, because it's all, some of these men, I'm gonna just talk about these men right now, are
Mhm.
so manipulative,
Ma'am.
so low, so wicked, so narcissistic, so
Yes.
ill
Hmm.
intentioned, that they will put on just to get a person on the hook and then try to kill them.
Yes.
I'm gonna just say this, and then I'm gonna let you tell us all about it. We're gonna jump right into this. But I have a family member and I saw it firsthand. And I literally was the one who was engaging with that person, and they had a history of um no parents involved, and maybe even like a should have been in foster care, and that's my heart, Key. So I heard you say, like, you're a nurturer.
Hmm.
I worked with kids in foster care, and so when that person began to share their background, oh Lord, we have a really good family. You want to bring them into your family. You want to
Yes.
give them that thing that they don't have, right?
Yes. Yes.
Help
And
fill that void
you
that
want to
they
help
Yes.
fill that void. You want to show somebody, like, every family is not dysfunctional,
right.
or
Yes.
eh,
Let us love on you. We gonna
let
love
us
Yes.
love on you.
Yes.
And
That's it.
yes, yes. And I just remember hearing that person say all the right things and do all the right things, but it was short lived.
Hmm.
When I say it was short lived, and they got that family member on a hook. And then it was violence that started. It was kicking in the door or barging in the door and standing over them while they sleep. It was,
Yes.
hitting their car, and, taking their keys, and,
Yes.
and just, acting a fool when decisions weren't made that they didn't like. And I mean, weeks of, stalk. I mean, just craziness. And you looking like, is this the right person?
Yeah. Yeah.
They nuts. At some point, you start to say, this person is nuts. You know,
Crazy.
yes. And so you experienced it. Tell us, now that y'all were married, you saw an immediate. It went from just a grabbing to something far worse. Tell us
Yes,
about it.
ma'am. At that point when we got married, he felt like he controlled me. I'm your husband. You wear my last name. Um, it went fast. He had started at this point choking me to where I couldn't really breathe. Me having
Wait,
to go to
say
work,
that again, Key.
choking me to where I could barely breathe.
He started
Um,
choking you after
mhm,
marriage, choking
mhm.
you to where you could barely breathe.
Yes, ma'am. The day after we were married, actually, he slapped me down to my knees the day after we were married. And the words that came out of his mouth was, "You're mine now. We're married." And I'm like, what? Paper don't mean anything because I have your last name now. Yes, it does. So for him marrying me really made him feel like he controlled me, everything that I did.
Wow.
Um, so they work on your mental, they work on your self esteem. They
Mm,
make you feel so little and so small. They
mm,
make you feel like no one loves you. No
mm,
one loves you but me. No one is
mm.
going to take care of you but me. I have 3 children. And he was excellent with my children in the beginning. And I think that's another thing that I fell in love with.
Oh, he
My
put
children were
on.
young. Yeah,
He
they were
put
young
on.
then. He did homework, take them to
Oh
school,
my.
pick them up.
Mm.
Anything that they wanted, he
Mm.
gave to them, clothes,
Oh,
shoes, wise.
the
He
perfect
came,
stepdaddy.
yes, came through the door paying bills. He never missed a school function, anything. He was there.
And see, that's why, we can't necessarily, and I remember the situation that I was just referring to, we can't necessarily say, how did you end up with him? Because they put on and they're everything that we're looking for. They check all the boxes. You get what I'm
Right.
saying? So it's like, Lord, how do we navigate this thing when people pretend and for a short season they check all the boxes?
Yes. Yes.
Keep going. So he started choking you till you could barely breathe. And what else?
Mhm. Um, so the years went on. My son graduated. We would travel with skating, so we would go to different states and everything. It had got to the point to where if I look, I mean, you're out, everybody's walking, everybody enjoying each other, but I'm staring at individuals. It had got to
Mm,
that point to where we couldn't even travel anymore. He's thinking I'm looking at other men. Other men want to talk to me if they come up and speak to me. Um, and at that point, I didn't want to travel anymore. um, I just stayed home. If it wasn't family, and at this point, a year after we were married, I really wasn't even talking to my family anymore. It was all about his
mm,
family. We always,
mm,
every function, we was at his family house. Every holiday, we was at his family house.
mm.
Never went to my family house for no holidays. Um,
And how you mentioned about like Facebook, he started harassing you
oh
about.
yes, yes, ma'am. If I and like I said, I have tons of friends. He would want me to post us
Mm,
daily. And if I didn't, I that was a slap up or an argument. So you're not
wow.
posting me. Why are you not posting this? You must be talking to some type of man. You don't want him to see that we're together. And I'm like, it says on our Facebook that we're married. I'm always posting you. At that point, I just started backing up off of social media. And that
Wow,
even made an
altogether.
argument.
Wow.
Yes.
What now was he was getting on you about posting him? Was he posting y'all?
No, ma'am. He'll post every now and then. Like if we go to a family function or
My Lord.
something, he'll post, but just individually posting
Uh-huh.
me alone by myself, no, ma'am. It was either with the children or with his family.
And later we're gonna find out why. Y'all stay tuned. Y'all stay tuned. This gonna get good. I'm telling you, this gonna get good. Okay. And so he was dictating, harassing you to post. What were some of the other things? When did the violence start to get unbearable?
Um, it started getting unbearable around 2000, the end of 15 to 16. Um, I remember he came in because he would always go out late at night to the clubs or just out hustling, as he say, and never come back with no money. But here, neither here or there.
Mm,
It was like, and at this point, I didn't know that he was messing with other women, but it did come up a little later. But he would come in angry for some reason. That was the first time that he bust my mouth open. To this day, I still have the scar on my lip.
wow.
He just came in an uprage.
Mm,
And I'm like, he was like, so I ain't got nothing to eat. And I'm like, I didn't know that you wanted anything to eat. You usually say, hey, put my plate up or anything like that. This day you didn't. So I'm thinking that he was going to get something to eat, while he was out because I cooked every day
mm,
for my family. I cooked every day when I got off work. So I guess he was just angry. He would come home a lot of the times just being angry. I
Mm.
don't know if the other women made him angry or what was making him angry, but he would come home and bring that on me. Um, at this time, I was smoking marijuana. He would
Mhm.
always keep me extra high, um,
Mm.
to the point I'm already tired from working, doing my wifely duties, cooking, cleaning, washing. So I would go to sleep early and he would be out all night. So he would definitely keep me drugged up a lot
Wow.
for him to be out in the streets a lot. And one thing about it, I couldn't question him. Where
Oh
you
my.
been or anything like that.
He was constantly accusing you. At one point, he accused you of sleeping with he was constantly accusing you of sleeping with
Mhm.
people. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
When he
When we
was
used
actually
to,
the one out there doing it.
oh yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. He definitely it had got to the point the women would text, call. One incident came, I was in my bed asleep, a lady came and knocked on our bedroom window. And I'm thinking, who knocking on the bedroom window? I'm thinking maybe he lost his keys or something. I looked out the window. It was a friend girl of his that I thought was his friend girl because I'm not that type of woman to where you can't have female friends.
Mhm.
If I know them, I'm cool with that. And I went around and opened the front door. Now, mind you, she's never been to our house that I had known of. So how did she even know where our bedroom window was? When I opened the door, she was bleeding. Um,
Mm.
her wig was off her head because her hair was everywhere. And she was like, he jumped on me.
Mm.
And I'm like, jumped on you for what? Yeah, we've been messing around the whole time. Y'all been together. Since y'all been together, we've been messing around and he seen me talking to a man and he jumped on me. At
Wow.
this point, I just picked up the phone and I called him because this was in the middle of the night. And I was like, Nene over here. And he was like, what? I'm telling you, he was there under 5 minutes. I don't know where he was,
Mm.
but he pulled up to their house and they got into it. And he was like, I told you, I'll never come with my wife and my kids stay at.
Mhm.
And at that point, I just closed the door because it didn't pertain to me at that point. At that point,
Yes.
I was getting tired uh,
Yes.
of it. Um, and she came back the next day with the police because
Mm.
he had hit her car. So that's when it just started really dwindling down with the women, him beating on me more and more. And at this point, I told his parents because they didn't know. He was raised in a two-parent home. It was his stepdad and his mom, but he was definitely raised in a two-parent home. And people always say, they be the perfect ones. They come from a two-parent home, but yeah.
Describe the incident where he beat you so bad you had to reach out to his mom.
Okay, so he came home. At this point, I didn't know that he was on drugs really bad.
Mhm.
Um, and the drug that he was on, when it when he comes down, it makes you angry.
Mhm.
He had beat me so bad to where my eye was busted open, my lip was busted open, and I ran down the sidewalk of the apartment complex we lived in because the manager of the apartment complex was my childhood friend. And I went to her house, I beat it on her door, she let me in. I called his mom at that point. She came over. She knew at this point what was going on in the home, but he didn't know that she knew.
Mhm.
When it would get bad, I would go to her house, and me and my girls would stay there to the next day till it blowed over. But this particular night, her and her husband came over, and she hit him in his mouth, and
Mm.
she told him, you wasn't raised like that. You don't put your hands on a woman. This is your wife. And after that, probably a week or so passed. I didn't have any issues with him at all.
A week or so. But
A
then
week
it started back up. And it
started
even
right back up.
started right back up. And he even started um antagonizing your son.
Yes. He started because at this point my son was older. He had his own place. He still lived in the same apartment complex that we lived in. Um, but he stayed in his own place. And of course, that's my son. So he started, don't talk to my mom like that. Don't put your hands on my mom like that. Um, and they had a situation.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, I really should have left. I know I should have left, but I was so scared. And you want to be in your own space. That's another thing. And I stayed. And at that
So,
point, me and my son, we didn't speak for a year.
so Key,
And
if describe when you say you had a situation, because the what he did to your son was, I mean, something that's heart wrenching. Tell us about that.
he physically, him and my son had a fight. He had on some steel toe boots. And when he kicked my son, it split his forehead. So he was bleeding everywhere. I'm jumping on him also trying to get him off my son. It was horrible. It was terrible. Um, of course, the state, my son did not want to press charges. But the state, of course, the state picked it up. Um, and with him not ever being in trouble in the state of Arkansas, that they went on and just put him on probation.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, I was so mentally messed up.
Mm-hmm.
Mentally, I was just so mentally messed up because, of course, the people on the outside. So you gonna tell me, you're not gonna leave him, and he didn't did this, and when you're mentally messed up like that, I mean, you can't even explain it to people who's never been there.
Mm.
Okay, it's hard to explain, but for people who's been in domestic, they understand exactly what I'm talking about. But yes, I went a whole year without speaking to my son. And then we finally sat down and had a talk and,
Mm-hmm.
we became back close. But that's my oldest. I was 18 when I had him.
Wow.
So
So I'm sure he's the love of your life, that boy.
yes,
Yes.
yes,
And so
yes,
I'm sure that was hard, but that's what those spirits do. They
yes,
isolate, they want to divide, they don't want to
yes,
see you
ma'am.
happy within any happy relation. They don't want to see any healthy mom, son, mom, daughter kind of
Yes,
relationship. Tell us about the time in 2016, in 2017. I think not only did he jump on your son, but there was an incident where he came in and you talked about you could see the whites in his eyes and
yes.
he was fisting you.
Mhm. Um, he was out of control at this point, like out of control. He had came to my job. Of course, at that point, I had a restraining order on Tracy. So even though he had a restraining order, he would call or talk to him sometimes, knowing I wasn't supposed to. He
Mm-hmm.
came to my job. They arrested him. He went to jail. His family got him out. He wasn't there long, probably a day or two. He came back to the house. I allowed him to come back to the house, and he was just talking so nice on the phone. You
Oh
know,
my.
you know, please just give me one more chance and I'll never do it again. The
Mm,
same old line.
mm.
I let him come in and we talked. It was
Wait,
probably
hold
like,
on. Pause, Key. Did y'all hear that? He wiggled his way back in the house,
yeah,
talking nice, talking, I'm never gonna, all these empty words. And we have to be
yes,
watchful of those empty words. If they did it once, if they did it twice, Key, tell them
they'll do it again.
they're gonna do it again. It's gonna
I
be
They're
a
say
gonna do it
cycle.
again.
beware of the niceties. Because
Yes,
that
yes,
on the tail end of that is more hell. I think you might agree with that.
yes, ma'am. Their first time, you leave their first time because it's not gonna stop. I'm
It's not
just
gonna
not
stop.
gonna stop.
And sometimes they trying to test us
I
Yeah.
to
just about
see.
to say they
Mm-hmm.
realize,
Mm-hmm.
Is she gonna put up,
Yes,
with this?
if
yes,
I
ma'am.
pour this amount of niceties, that's what I need to get the door back open so I can get back in and cause more hell.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
ma'am. So
So
at
he
that
can't.
point,
Okay, yes, sorry.
yes, that's okay. He came in, he talked it nice, and all of a sudden it flipped. All
Mm,
this is your fault.
mm,
I wouldn't have went to jail or we wouldn't have never broke up. All of this is your fault. You want to sit and call my mama, put my family in our business. This
Oh,
is your fault.
mm-hmm,
So at this point, I'm crying. How is it my fault? If you keep your hands to yourself, we wouldn't be here. The
mm-hmm,
next thing I know, it's like his eyes just went white.
mm,
They went white, red. Like I've never seen him this angry before because this was his first time going to jail
mm,
concerning us. Um, at that point, when I looked up, my eye was like pounding. He had, at this point, that's when he started balling his fist up. He balled his fist up and he hit me directly in my eye. My eye was swollen, shut, black. I had to take days off work after this.
Mm,
Um, I was crying. I was on the floor,
mm,
and it's like he popped out of it. I
mm,
was almost like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type of character.
mm, mm,
And he grabbed me. I am so sorry. I don't know what happened. I am so sorry. I ran to the room. I ran
mm,
to the room. He brought me some ice. He was
mm,
like, "Here, just put this on your eye and I'll be back."
mm,
I don't know how long he was gone because I had fell asleep at that time crying. When I woke up, I
mm.
had roses and a gift
Oh no.
on the bed. A
You
gift,
said what? You had roses on the bed.
yes, ma'am, and a gift on the bed.
Oh, we.
Um,
Poured it on thick.
yeah, he poured it on thick. He will always pour it on thick. Um,
Wow.
I'm sorry. We've been together at this point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And he was like, we've been together so long and,
Mm,
you've been there for me and just please just give me a chance. Please, I'm
mm,
begging you. At this point, I was so embarrassed, y'all.
Mm.
mm.
I was so embarrassed. I didn't want to tell nobody. I just wanted to stay in that house.
Yes, wow.
Just
And not only
isolate myself.
did and so not only did were you going through, but you had two young girls that could hear the commotion.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And at this point, a son who had also
Yes.
experienced the
Yes.
impact.
Yes. At this point, um, he never just been like extra mean to my, like he wouldn't let them go places.
Mhm.
They're girls. They don't need to be
Mhm.
out. They don't need to do this. They
Mhm.
don't need to do that. And I'm like, they're young. They're growing up now. At this point, they're in middle school. When we met, they were in elementary. I'm like, they want to go out, hang out with their friends. No, I know how these men are, and these
Mm,
boys don't want nothing from them but sex. And, he really wouldn't let them go anywhere.
mm.
Um, be on the phones, then that's when teenagers start having phones and stuff. He wouldn't let them be on the phone. If they was on their phone, they had to sit in the living room.
Wow. Some of the
In
same
front,
some of the same
yes,
control that he was
yes,
inflicting upon you, he was doing the
yes.
same with them.
Yes, and I
Wow.
didn't want him to touch them, so I tried to do whatever he asked when it came to the girls, because I didn't want him to put his hands on them. But I'm sure hearing him through the walls and seeing my face, even though I don't care how much makeup I put on, I knew they knew because
Mm.
they would go and tell my sister. My sister, even though I didn't speak to my sister and my mom a lot, they would still come and pick the girls up. They never came in the house. They'll call and say,
Wow.
"Hey, I'm outside."
Wow. Wow. So the girls were able to see some of the bruising
Yes, ma'am.
from the physical abuse.
Yes, ma'am.
You came to the point, especially after that last huge beating, where you said, I gotta get out of here.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us just a little bit about that. You when you got the courage to leave.
When I got the courage to leave, it was in 2018. It was around May, and that weekend he had came home and he was just in a bad way. And I was sitting on the bed. I can remember this, and he was just talking reckless to me and
Mm,
telling me how fat I was, and
mm,
just he just would just drain me.
mm,
And he reached out and he slapped me. And I reached out and I slapped him back. That was my
woo,
first time ever putting my hands on him. I slapped him so hard he went back, and when he rose up, his eyes was big. He said, "Did you just hit me?"
Mm.
I said,
period.
"I sure did." I said, "Keep your
Hey,
hands to yourself."
period.
Yes.
Wow.
So he left. He said, I'm just gonna get out of here because now you want to put your hands on somebody. Yes. He left that night and he came
Mm.
back. When he came back, I guess it just the anger had built up, and he came in. Start an argument like he usually do. And the arguments don't be having nothing to do with me. I don't even be knowing what he's talking about half of the time. And that's how they are. The narcissistic, they love to try to flip it on you.
Mm,
At this time, my girls were older. I didn't know that his auntie told the girls if something didn't feel right to them to
Mm.
call her and she's coming. So we're in the living room, we're arguing, going back and forth. When they came out the room, he was on me at this point.
mm,
A knock came at the door. It was his auntie and her boyfriend and one of his cousins. And she said, Tracy, what you in here doing? He said, what you doing over here? You don't need to
mm.
be in my business. This my wife. You can't tell me what to do.
Wow.
She said, yeah, I'm going to tell you what to do because you know you wasn't raised like this. Why are you putting your hands on her? So the girls went back in their room, but they came back out when they heard Wonder. He said, how you know what was going on? She said, the girls called me. The
Wow.
girls called you. She said, yeah. She said, Kitcher, do you want to come with me? I said, yes. At this point, I'm just crying. The
Mm,
girls are upset. They're crying. And he pushed her. She said, go get you some clothes. Y'all go get y'all some clothes. The girls went to the back, was getting their things. I'm walking to the back. He steady talking to her. He pushed her out the door.
mm,
He said, go on, Wanda, get up out of here. Get up out of here.
mm,
So she said, don't put your hands on me.
mm,
And he pushed her one more time and she stepped back out the door. At this point, the cousin and he pushed the door, try to push the door closed. The cousin put her foot in the door and stopped the door from closing all the way because he was going to close it and lock it. When she did that, he had already grabbed me by my neck, and because our couch was literally right by the door. And the girls came out the room, they seen him on top of me. They started jumping on him. And what made me leave is when he turned around. At this point, his auntie boyfriend came out, and he's in the house at this point. When Tracy finally let up, when they got up off of him, he turned around and he balled his fist up to hit my oldest daughter.
mm.
And at that point, I said, I'm not going through that no more.
Wow.
We left with two pair of clothes,
Mm,
and we left. And that day, I never came back because I had left multiple of times and went back. That
mm.
time, I didn't. When I woke up, we went over his auntie house. We stayed there. I had to go to work the next day. When I woke up, he had bust the windows out my Jeep. And I
Ooh.
knew it was him because all my money, my laptop for work, all that was in the still placed in there.
Mm, mm,
When I left him in 2018, he filed the divorce. It didn't get finalized until that March of 2019 because the process, how it goes in Arkansas.
Out the divorce. A
Yes.
demon that didn't want to let
Mhm.
go of you.
Yes, ma'am. I had two restraining orders put on him after that.
Mm,
He harassed me
mm,
over and over. He had a girlfriend at this point. I hadn't even been at the house. When I say I left everything, I left everything. We had two pair of clothes. I never went back to that house. I bought clothes for every day for us until we built up
wow.
enough clothes. I slept on my mom's floor, um, me and my girls for 2 months until I got our
Wow.
apartment in August in 2018. He harassed us. He tried to run me and my mom off the road. Like it was the worst.
Wow. It continued
Hmm.
after that. And so it's like even after you try to get free, that spirit continues to try to hold you bondage,
Yes,
hold you
ma'am.
captive. It don't want to see you leave and go free.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. I remember you said, and I want you to say this because I thought it was so, so powerful. You said, I'm so blessed that I walked out on my feet rather than in a body bag.
Yes, ma'am. Because I see so many women. It actually, someone in our town just got murdered last night from her
Mm,
boyfriend. The rate is getting up so high with these men killing these women. Um, and I think that that would have been the next step
mm,
because he had finally got a gun. Um,
mm.
and so I knew that was going to be the next step. So I'm thankful. When I say I am thankful that I walked out instead of a
Yes.
body. I'm thankful that my kids still have me.
Yes.
So I just want to say this. If you see any red flag, that first red flag, leave it alone. You cannot fix anybody. You cannot change anybody. You cannot give a person love that really don't even want love. They say they want it, but they don't.
Mm, 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 mm.
So if I can only help one person, I've
Yes.
done my job here.
That is so powerful. All caps powerful. There's just one more thing I want to touch on because
Yes,
this is
ma'am.
where we about to really get into just showing how deep these now I'm going to shift to this love triangle, how deep they can go, and just how blind really we can be, not to say that in a demeaning way, but just as women,
Mhm,
we've all been in a situation where we're so blind, it's like we do crazy things. So after you left him, you got to share this with the audience, Key. After
mhm.
you left that joker, your heart, and it just really speaks to how loving and tender your heart is. You still helped him. Tell the audience what you did for this man. After you left him, his no good self, I could talk about him, his no good self, he had nowhere to go, nowhere to stay. Where did he stay?
He stayed in that apartment in my name because he was a felon, so he couldn't get an apartment or anything. I allowed him to stay in that apartment because he wouldn't have had nowhere to go.
He
And
would
of
not
course,
have had anywhere to go, and your heart didn't want to see him on the street. Man was beating your butt. You didn't
beating
want
me
to see him. Yes, for years.
for years. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I allowed him to stay in that apartment. And it was fully furnished because I left everything. When I finally got my apartment, the only thing me and my girls and my family went with me. We went and got our clothes. That's it.
Uh-huh.
We
Did
left
he take
everything
over
at
the
that.
rent?
hmm At that
Oh,
point, he had already um, moved in someone else and her kids in that
okay.
No,
apartment.
but
Wait.
was he paying? Did he take over the note? Okay, so I can understand he can't, he couldn't put the
hmm
apartment in his name, but was he paying at
Did
least
he
paying
take
the
over
rent?
the rent?
That was his goal. That's what he said. But
But
when he finally left, I got a bill of
Oh,
$3,000 that I just paid off.
oh,
So he
oh,
know he wasn't paying the bill, and I had to still put that because it was on
okay.
my credit. Yes,
It
ma'am.
was on your credit. He wasn't paying the bill, staying there, and you just said that he moved in. This guy was so terrible. He moved in another woman and her kids.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. Wow. And how did you find that out? Like,
I wasn't the one to tell my business or run on social media with my business, so a lot of people didn't know that me and Tracy wasn't together anymore. And he had posted a picture of this young lady and himself in our home.
mm,
And it was a friend of his that sent me the picture that he posted on social media. And she was like, "Ain't that y'all couch?"
mm,
And I'm like, "Yeah." And we
mm,
hadn't even been broken up for 2 weeks. So
mm,
I went over
oh,
there. I went over there. I
mm,
called him. I said, "I'm on my way over there. Now I'm giving you somewhere to stay. We haven't even been separated for 2 weeks. And you already got somebody over there." By the time I pulled up, they were walking out the door. And this is my first time when I met her.
wow.
Um, and I'm like, "You do know he's married." She didn't say anything. He didn't say anything. They got in the car, they left. I walked in the house. I still had a key to the house. He didn't get the locks changed or nothing like that. So I still had my keys. And I went in there. And at that point, right then and there, I said, it's really over.
mm.
I knew I wasn't going back, but that right there,
Uh-huh. It
The
sealed the deal.
audacity.
it
It
sealed,
sealed the deal.
it definitely sealed the deal. It
It
definitely
sealed
sealed
the
the
deal.
deal.
Because that's
Mm-hmm.
just low. Like, dude,
Yes,
you living in
yes,
my place and you got
yes,
another woman in my place with
yeah,
y'all pictures up. Your wedding pictures
yes,
up was up.
yes. Everything was still up in the house. And
And
her,
those are the kind of things that some of these people, will
mm-hmm,
do.
mm-hmm,
So we um we are thankful,
mm-hmm,
and we want to welcome the young lady
mm-hmm.
who was in your apartment. So we have her, she's going to join us, and um so y'all have had conversations and y'all have been supporters of each other. So
Yes,
can you
ma'am.
press admit? So she is actually going to join us, and we're going to talk about this love triangle.